Okay, hello. I think we are live. We are live. Good. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me today. If you're just joining, I'd love to hear where you're joining from. Anything you're interested in hearing about specifically, I can adapt to this as we go. Just drop a line in the comment where you're watching from, and is it working? Yes, it's working good. Just checking if everything's working right. You should be able to hear me. Hopefully you can hear me all right. If you can't hear me, please do drop a comment as soon as you can. Otherwise, really happy to have you here. We're going to get into the course that I'm releasing. I have some slightly unfortunate news in that it's not, Udemy have put it on hold for a little bit for some unknown reason, confusing me and everyone, but I'm going to send you an email as soon as I can with the actual when it actually launches. But in the meantime, let's get into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of the course. I'm going to talk about what the course is and talk about some of the pre-reviews I've had from the course, because that's pretty exciting. And we'll talk about, we'll go through a detailed into one of the modules of the course. Before I do, though, I just wanted to go through what this course is about. We're calling it the OKR Management Course. So that's what I'm calling it. The OKR Management System Course. I keep changing the name of it. The OKR Management System Course is what I'm calling it. And it's launching today, hopefully, if Udemy get their act together. And it covers 5 topics, 5 main areas of the OKR management system. And those are objectives, key results, the planning habit, the execution cadence, and the quarterly cycle. And these 5 things are kind of, the reason they're different to some of the other courses you have here is that OKRs obviously are about the objectives and the key results. But if you want to actually get things done, you need to do something with these objectives and key results. And that's where those 3 mechanisms come in: the planning habit, the execution cadence, and the quarterly cycle. Now, I'll get into those in a few minutes. But before we do, I'm just going to go through actually, maybe I'll just put this into a slide. I should have put this slide up earlier on. Let me just make this slide work better. I shall paste this here as a slide here while I'm doing this. Sorry for doing this as I'm going here. I just forgot to edit this particular slide and paste it in. File, edit, paste, and match formatting. Right, like that. Okay, remove that and we'll make it black. Right, and then I'll put this on screen in just a moment, and we'll have that going. So this course, as I've mentioned in the emails that I've been sending around, the course is for managers, directors, executives, or cross-functional leaders. If you're in a situation where you think you'd like to use OKRs, or if you're in a situation where you are using OKRs, this will be very helpful for you. If you're a consultant and you're helping other people use OKRs, this will be helpful for you as well. If you want, on the other hand, if you're a solo practitioner using OKRs for yourself, it may be helpful, it may not be. It's not really aimed at you. Take from it what you will. I use OKRs for myself, but in a very specific way. I don't think most of what I'm talking about here is about how you can work with teams and companies. If you're an individual in a project environment or some sort of place with lots of change resistance, lots of very traditional processes, and they're not using OKRs, it might be quite hard to actually take advantage of this. I think it will work. I think it can work for you, but it's challenging just because of the resistance in your organization. If you're looking for an instant sort of solution, bam, bam, like, follow the bouncing ball, here are the steps, and everything's going to work magically for you, that's a bit unrealistic. This isn't going to work like that. Nothing will. But make sure you have realistic expectations. And if you're just content with the status quo and you want to learn something because it's cool, it's probably not worth your effort, to be honest. You're going to do some work to actually change this. All right, let's get into the presentation here. We'll share that, and then we'll have to, I think this should work. Is this going to work now? Yes, it will. Okay, so this is the outline of the course here, the course overview. For some reason, I still have it shining like that. Can I get rid of that? There we go. So the course overview, there are 8 parts to this course. The first step is about identifying, this is the slide that I thought that I changed. I thought I had changed this. I have to, okay, right, now I haven't. Bother. Okay, right. So for some reason, the naming of these, the items in this course is different to the naming of the course that we have in the actual document. So The names of these sections are different. The first part is about identifying and addressing the challenges, like understanding where your pain points are and what needs to change about your organization. The second part is about defining what good looks like. What is leadership excellence? The third part is about unveiling the 5 key components of the OKR management system. We do a sort of an overview of the whole session. Oh, here we go. We've got some people online. That's great. David Joyce joining from Lancashire. Hi, how are you doing? Majid joining from Iran. Hi, excellent. Anyone else joining? Feel free to just drop a comment in and say where you're watching from. So the 5 key components, we're going through basically an overview of the 5 sections ahead. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through this overview in this webinar. Feel free, by the way, to ask any questions as you're going. We're happy to address them. 4 is going to be about crafting effective objectives, like the objective component of OKRs. 5 is about mastering the key results. How to do the key result part of OKRs, that's defining success. 6 is about the planning habit, embracing the planning habit. How do you get the OKRs into a plan that actually works? 7 is about the execution cadence and being precise about your execution. And 8 is about the quarterly OKR cycle and putting these together. So let's get on with this. I'm going to go through this section 3. Before I do, this is what it looks like when you log into Udemy. You'll see me. Mostly it's video content. It's about 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think it is. On the right, you'll see over here, there's some resources. These are basically some slides that you can download that you can use, that you'll find useful as you go through this. It's broken into sections. The naming of the section is different to the last slide. Never mind about that. But basically, the naming of the section is pretty clear. Mahmood from Canada. Hi, how are you doing? There's some exercises in there. You'll find the exercises that to do. You'll basically be doing some exercises on on a document that you can use, and there's lots of different sections there. You can ask questions and notes and so on. It's all standard Udemy. If you don't have an Udemy account, you'll need to get an Udemy account to do this, but it's pretty simple. I will send you the link around later on to be able to use this. All right. The reviews that I've had this shared with a couple of people, like a small selection of people that I thought would have some insight and want to test this course out. And here are some of the reviews. They're all 5 stars. I've had 3 reviews. Fantastic course for anyone starting out with OKRs or looking for best practices in making their existing processes better. Richard's practical, simple, and results-focused approach is great. You won't need to read OKR books with a bunch of frameworks to be able to get started. The way I've tried to do this is very practical and pragmatic. And it's also quite adaptable. You will learn the principles and be able to use them in practice. David Rourt says the course is detailed, had lots of great content, and takes you through OKRs, what they are and how to use them extremely well. And Karen says, I highly recommend this course on OKRs. Richard covers the essential elements for addressing the problems that necessitate the use of OKRs to defining what success looks like. The course goes beyond theory and provides practical techniques and a clear roadmap to help implement OKRs in your organization. So that's what other people have said about this course. I'd love to hear when you do this, I'd love to hear your experience of this course. If you can share with me your reviews, if you have any feedback, send it directly to me. Dave asks, can the course be taken at your own pace? Let me see if I can put that on screen. Rewatch episodes, chapters, and so on. Yes, it can. So it's a self-paced course. If you look at if you know how Udemy works, it's basically there are videos here and you watch them at your own pace. So each one has 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. You watch them as you go. You can even change the speed of talking. Now, in this video right now, I've just had 3 coffees, so I'm talking a bit fast. But in the videos on Udemy, my speaking pace is a bit slower because I've planned it a bit better. And you'll find that it should be reasonably consumable, but each of the videos is relatively short. I think the longest one is 13 minutes. Okay, so I'll put this back and there's comments and questions, right? So let's get into it. I'm going to give you a brief preview of the very first part of the course and then the third part, which is the 5 components. So I want to talk about South Park. This is something that I do with all my clients. I try and explain this particular episode of South Park. And what happens in this episode of South Park, and this sounds like it's going to be a silly cartoon. It is, but this is really relevant to the problems that you're actually solving with OKRs. So in South Park, in this episode about 20 years ago, the boys noticed that their underpants kept going missing from their drawers, and they stayed up late one night and they saw these gnomes stealing all their underpants. It's like, what's going on here? So they chase the gnomes and they follow them with their underpants down to this huge underground cave. And in this cave, there's a pile of underpants and gnomes running around doing things. And they had this conversation with one of the gnomes. And they said, hey, what are you doing with all these underpants? He says, well, collecting underpants is our business. What do you mean collecting underpants is your business? Well, collecting underpants is just phase one. Phase one. So what's phase two then? Hey guys, does anyone know what phase two? No one knew what phase two was, but phase three is profit, right? And the challenge that the reason that I use this example and how this is similar to OKRs or related to OKRs is because so much of our management is about tasks, collecting underpants on one side, or these end results, these outcomes like profit. And this might be market share, it might be new customers or something like that. But what's going on here is we're missing phase two. And the way I talk about OKRs is really about helping you define what phase two is, like what is the value you're creating that defines success, right? So being successful at collecting underpants in this business, it's a variety of things it might be, but maybe there's an underpants as a service, maybe they're making recycled paper out of cotton, right? Whatever they're doing something. And how they're doing their tasks really matters. Is what is phase two? What are we trying to achieve here? And what does success really look like? And that's what OKRs are really about. Now, if you just talk about profit, because obviously profit as a business, we're all trying to do that, but that provides so much freedom that anyone can do anything. And so lots of different people will have different ideas. So in the underpants gnomes case, in this case here, they'd have a lot of the most motivated gnomes would be running around doing things, doing whatever they're doing, and trying to have, they might have ideas. If they have an idea, they won't know what to do with it. It's very hard to do anything with an idea if you don't know what success is really about. So OKRs help you do that to get people's idea of success and understand what's going on so that you can get their best engagement. Now, the course itself, I'm going to show you section 3, which is the 5 components of OKRs. They are, as I mentioned, objectives, setting what are we trying to achieve, key results, how do we define success? And this is really about defining phase 2. The planning habit, how do you turn this into reality? What does it look like? And how do you get people collaborating? The execution cadence, this is how do you make sure that you're beating the drum on a regular basis and getting things happening every week? And the OKR cycle. The OKR cycle is usually a quarterly cycle, but it can be a different cycle. But it's the cycle that puts things together into an overall sort of like, here's how the quarter starts and ends, and here's how we link this together into the next quarter. And that's really where you link it to strategy. Okay, so let's just get into this to start off with. Let's talk about objectives. What are objectives? Briefly, objectives are there to set direction and inspire action. So about making it matter. So you've put the objective down. I've got this diagram here. It's a very graphical diagram of what an OKR looks like, the objective and the key results. And the objective is about setting direction and inspiring action. And it's really about taking what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve with your strategy, breaking it down into a chunk that you want to achieve this quarter, and saying that chunk, saying what it is. But what's really interesting here, the way you can do this successfully is not by writing something that's complicated here. Like if it sounds like a consultant wrote it, it's probably not going to work. What you want is something that really matters to people. You have people in your teams, you're trying to articulate a strategy and a destination that's inspiring and motivating and interesting to them, that's relevant, and it captures the value of customers, or customer value, and it captures what they're trying to achieve and makes them want to do things. So it sets direction and inspires action. It may not be entirely unambiguous. The objective can be subjective if you like, but the idea is that it's supposed to communicate where you're going. The second thing related to objectives is that you want a small number of them. So if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. You should focus on a small number of these. I've written this down with changing colors. What I find is that if you have up to 3 objectives, it's kind of okay. Fewer is better. 1 is great because it's super clear. If you have 4 or 5, it starts to get a bit fuzzy because people then have to trade off between 5 different things that they're doing. If you have more, and I had one client who had 16 when I started with them. If you have more than 5, it's just way too confusing and people have to make their own decisions about what to trade off against, and there's no prioritization and it's not clear. So as leaders, we need to be really crystal clear on what is super important and what is not. The things that are not important, they can still get done. They can still be relevant, but they're not the priorities. And you need to be clear about the priorities. Right. So there's a discipline here of having just up to 3 OKRs. Fewer is better. Let's talk about key results. So key results are all about clarifying, measuring, and empowering. And I've chosen these 3 words specifically, but it's all about defining the problems to solve, not the tasks. So you imagine you have an objective, and I will show an example of this in a minute. There's an objective, and then there's a series of key results. These key results, there might be 2 or 3 of them. There might be 5 of them. You don't want too many, but it's okay to have a handful, right? what you're trying to do is clarify the objective, because the objective can be subjective, it can be a bit ambiguous. Your key results is defining exactly what success means. And why this is important is because at the end of the quarter, you want to be able to look back and say, were we successful? And the answer to that question needs to be clear, crystal clear, because if it's not, then clearly during the quarter, you're all pulling in different directions and doing different things. If you can't decide at the end whether you were successful or not, then must have been during the quarter you had different expectations, and that means that you weren't working together well. So these key results need to be crystal clear. It's about measuring success. So along the way, you can use this to measure how far you are along the way. Don't overemphasize that, but that's useful. And finally, what is super important is empowering. Now, I talked a bit earlier about the underpants gnomes and about having the collecting underpants and so on. If you manage to tasks, if you set goals based on tasks, no one's empowered to do anything different. If you clarify exactly what phase 2 is, what value is, we're collecting a lot of white, clean, recyclable cotton, right? Then now we know what we're trying to achieve here, and now we're empowered to come up with different solutions. Now, just because you've empowered people, you've said what the key results are, you're not hands off, you're not still standing back. The other 3 mechanisms we talk about here in part of this will be talking about how that works in practice and how you can be engaged with your teams as you go through. So it's not just like set and forget, it's actually engaged, but doing this helps to empower them and helps find the right solutions, the right problems to solve rather. And, oh, this diagram didn't work. Here we go. Key results are usually outcomes. Now, I like to use this diagram as a sort of spectrum. If you think about like actions on the left, like collecting underpants, and this might be launching features, it might be running events, whatever it is, right? These are actions, and these are things you do with junior people. Profit, on the other hand, is something for senior people. It's for the CEO and the board. Clearly, other people in the company need to know about profit, but you don't give them the task of making profit. What you do is you find output and outcomes, depending on the seniority of the people, and that is the phase 2. So in the course, we go into detail about how to move from when we know what actions we think we want to have, to how do we empower people to have outputs and outcomes. And if we know what profit we want, but we don't know, we haven't specified the actual phase 2, how do we come back from there to an outcome that empowers people? And then we've got a couple of slides on that in the course. An example of an OKR, this is what everyone likes to see. This is an example from my team at Google. When I was at Google, I was there for 6 years. And my team was about helping partners make more money from better ads, right? That was what we were doing. And this particular quarter was all about having more partners making more money from better ads, right? And so that objective tells us the direction we're trying to go in here. Well, that's what we're trying to do here. We're not necessarily trying to be more efficient. It would be helpful, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to help more partners make more money from better ads. That's our most important thing, as measured by these key results. And you can see in each case here, we have some specific clear result that's relatively easy to understand at the end of the quarter. Did we succeed on this or not? Increase average click-through rate from 2.34 to 3.2%. That click-through rate has got a very specific definition in our team, and we could look at it on a regular basis with a dashboard. It's really easy to see. Increase average cost per click from $11 to $15, right? And this was something that, again, it's in the dashboard. We could see it easily. This is all about making the ads more targeted, better ads, right? So what do we mean by better ads? We mean ads that have a higher click-through rate and a higher cost per click. Increase the number of sites supported per person. We had a team of our people, increasing the average from 6.4 to 10 per person. And that was about being more efficient, but it's really about making more partners, right? Reducing the average launch time in business days per ad placement from 12 to 2. It used to take us a long time to launch these ads, and now we want to make it shorter. So this is one of the targets we had, and this empowered our team, and especially in the course I tell a story about a friend of mine, Doug, who came up with a tool. Alfie's own bat decided to come up with a tool that would help deliver this particular feature, or make this really easy for us. Arun joining from India. Hi, Alice, as well. Great stuff. Thanks, Alice. And reduce bad targeting complaints per week from 334 to 100. We would have these situations where an ad would pop up and it would be inappropriate somehow, and we'd get bad targeting complaints. And what we wanted was better ads, not just more money, but better experience for users. So that was about making that. Now, when we had this, we obviously talked about this. Our team was involved in talking about this and trying to understand what are we trying to achieve here and so on. And because we could understand this, it was relatively easy for us to take initiative and do things. Right, so that's key results. We talked about key results, we talked about objectives. The planning habit, let's take this and put this into action. Like, what are we actually going to do? Now, let's not just get started executing, because a goal without a plan is just a dream, right? You actually want to make plans, and you can use whatever method you want to make a plan. But the OKR is the North Star, and the plan can change. So this diagram here really represents the OKR on the right, which is what you're trying to deliver, and that stays the same. That's fixed generally. You can change it if you need to, but you generally want to have it fixed. And on the left, we have different kinds of plans. We have, maybe you have a to-do list, maybe you have a document, maybe you have a project plan, a Kanban board, some sort of agile process, whatever you're using, it doesn't matter. Have a plan to deliver the objective, but the plan has to be changeable. And now in the course, I talk about the one-page plan, which is a simple way of having a written plan, which is one, maybe 2 or 3 pages, but usually 1 page if you can, which just simply clarifies what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it and what the risks are. Now, the advantage of having a short plan like that, that's really easy to modify, is that you can, before you get started executing, you can take it around to your colleagues and have a review of it and get their input and improve it, but then also engage them in owning the plan as well. So now you're collaborating. Once you have this short plan as well, it's relatively easy to use it in the execution cycle. And that's what we talk about in the execution cycle. So use whatever plan you want, but keep it short and keep it flexible. The plan is not a blueprint. It's not an instruction manual. It's a way of generating collaboration. The execution cadence. Now you have a plan. How are you going to execute this? We have the weekly execution cadence. The idea with the execution cadence is not that you're saying, what is our objective? What are our key results? What do we do? Because that's like Groundhog Day, starting from the same thing every time. The idea is that you discuss and change the plan. So you're looking at the plan, you're using the OKR as a North Star, and you're iterating on the plan, changing the plan as you go. Now, in the course, we go into some detail about how to run that weekly execution cadence meeting. Like, what do we do? What kind of questions do we ask? How do we make sure we're on track? All that sort of stuff. And there's a few extra bits in there that will help you power up that meeting about celebration and about operational reviews as well. So this is actually one of the parts that I think is the most useful part of the course. Most of my clients find this topic to be the most useful topic that they come across. Setting OKRs is helpful, but this is where it turns into action. Finally, the OKR cycle. So we have the OKR cycle is really about starting off with objectives for the quarter, doing focused work, assessing it, and then starting afresh, right? And you create this rhythm, and this rhythm is usually quarterly, right? Usually goes around in a cycle of quarterly. But what it looks like in more detail is that you start off with OKRs, you end with the assessment, all the way through the quarters, the weekly check-in on the plan, that's the focused work. To begin this, you start off with setting and aligning. You set the OKRs and you align with their team. You come up with your plan initially, make sure you're ready with realistic plans. You run on all hands at the start, you run on all hands at the end, and you do a mid-quarter review. And this mid-quarter review is what feeds into the next quarter. So you do a mid-quarter review, not only to see how are we doing, and do we need to change anything, especially about resourcing, prioritization, problem solving, that kind of thing, but also, what does it look like we're going to be at the end of the quarter, and how do we make sure we're ready for the next quarter? Like, how do we make sure we're ready to set the next set of OKRs? So that's the OKR, the 5 components of the OKR management system. Objectives, what are we trying to achieve here? Key results, how do we define success? Or alternatively, how do we define the problem that we're setting for our teams? The planning habit, how do we take that and turn it into action? The execution cadence, how do we make the action happen regularly? And the OKR cycle, how do we link these things together over time? And we're certainly in the course, we talk also about how to link these OKR cycles together from quarter to quarter. And that OKR cycle, by the way, is also where the link with strategy is, because that setting process and that halfway point is really about assessing, are we doing things in line with our strategy or not? Right. So I did mention at the start that Udemy have had a situation. They've taken my course. I went to launch it yesterday night, ready for today to say, make it public. And they said, oh, you're making it public. That means that we have to assess it again. We have to review it again. So they won't tell me how long it's going to take to review it. Unfortunately, I'm really quite frustrated by this, as you can imagine. I had this all set up, ready to go, because I wanted to avoid exactly this situation. But they've decided that no, we have to review the course as soon as I have decided to make it public. They want to review it again. So now if you go to the course, you'll see this. Sorry, this course is no longer accepting enrollments, which is silly. So it's not the case. But it will be accepting enrollments very, very soon. If you would like to sign up and just put your name in here so I can send you the sign up link directly as soon as I get it, go to course.richardrussell.co and sign up. The link will be on my LinkedIn as well. If not, you can sign up to my mailing list. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and I will send the actual sign up link when I get it, and I'll send it there everywhere else. But if you want me to send it to you specifically, I will send it to everyone who's put their name in to this link, course.richardrussell.co. So hopefully that's clear. I'll leave this on screen here. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a question into the chat, and I'm happy to answer them. In the meantime, I'll leave that on screen there, and I'll answer a couple of the questions that have come up already from people. Allow me to just pull up some notes here that I have. So questions that some people did ask, and as I say, feel free to drop a question into the chat there, into the comments. Alice has said, we all want to get results. Without a solid mechanism in place, we'll never get there. That's absolutely right. So will the course take up much more time? Basically, I mentioned before, it's 2 hours long. So the whole training is about 2 hours. You'll have to do some work yourself, and there is some work to do to make this actually apply in your situation, and I'll give you the exercises. But it's 2 hours of videos. The longest is 13 minutes long. It's something you can fit in any situation. It's fine. If you've never, and then another question that comes up is, if I've never tried using OKRs before, will I be behind? No, you won't. We'll take you through from the start. So to be honest, I think there's a lot of OKR training and OKR content out there, which is overcomplicated, and they overcomplicate the OKRs, and I think that you can simplify this. So this is actually quite simple, and it's a very step-by-step approach, very practical. You will gain enough information to be able to use this really effectively. So don't worry about being behind. And if you have tried OKRs before, if you are using them and they didn't work, what do you do? Well, look, realistically, I find that there's a lot of bad advice about OKRs. A lot of OKR software companies want to increase engagement with their software, and so they make OKRs be something that you have to, everyone has to set OKRs, and we have to do lots of interactions with the OKRs, and it's all about OKRs. I believe this is all about actual work and about strategy and about getting things done and about people. And so this approach has worked for my clients. I've had probably 1,000 or so people in my clients who've been affected by this, and it's worked for them. The other thing that's happened in a lot of my clients is that they've started using OKRs, and the way they've done this is by duplicating what Google does, sometimes from a book, sometimes they've hired an ex-Googler, whatever it is. Now, I am ex-Google myself, but I don't recommend you do what Google do. I don't recommend you take what a 150,000 person company that has their revenue and their growth and their stability over 20 years and apply that directly to your own organization. They have very different sets of problems. They're solving different sets of problems to what you're solving. You need to start from the problems you're solving, and that's why in this course we start from the pain points. So my approach is a bit different to how some of the other organizations work. And so if you've tried OKRs before and it didn't work, please just give it a go, have a look at this and see what works, because I think you'll find that it does work. I did mention earlier on in the emails and in my LinkedIn that there is a discount. There is a discount. It's going to be selling for 99 euros or equivalent in other currencies. Udemy set the prices in different currencies, but I'm offering you an 80% discount to sign up early. So if you want the discount, sign up on the course.richardrussell.co or pay attention to my LinkedIn and my mailing list. As soon as I get the information, I will be sharing that, and you will get the information you need to sign up. Joining late, is there a recording of this, Omar? Yes, there is. If you go on LinkedIn, you'll be able to see the recording. It will have a preview of one of the modules of the course and some information about the course, as well as quite an extensive discussion of the discount situation and why Udemy have held my course back. So there is a late situation here. Let me just add this back again. Omar, if you want to sign up, just sign up to course.richardrussell.co. You will get the 80% discount, but I can't unfortunately share the course itself right now because Udemy have put it into review right when I launched it. I don't know why they've done that, but they have. So if you ever want to talk to me about how Udemy works, I'm happy to talk about it. All right, look, thanks very much for joining. It's we're coming up to half an hour. I've been talking non-stop for half an hour, which has been fine for me, but hopefully not too much for you. Feel free to watch the replay. Feel free to share it with people. If you have any more questions, just drop the question in the link or send me a question on LinkedIn or anything wherever you're watching this, and I will get back to you. And do go to course.richardrussell.co to sign up and make sure that you get the link as soon as I get it from Udemy. Right now, they're still reviewing it. I think, by the way, just so you know, I think it will take about a day, but maybe two. It's hard to know. Okay, thanks very much again for joining. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all around. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any further questions. I'm really available. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.